Welcome to lecture 3, third module. So this week, these 2 weeks, we're going to be looking at the growth of absolutism, especially as it began in places like France. We're going to be looking at constitutionalism and constitutional monarchy as it arose in the Netherlands and what will become known as Great Britain. Not just England, but now Britain, which includes Scotland, especially after 1707, all those islands off the coast of northwestern Europe that become known as Great Britain. And we'll see as well in your textbook in this chapter, you also can see how absolutism, attempts for reform, kind of failed in places like Russia, even in Germany, which also became in some ways more absolutist as well. In fact, the French model of absolutism will be mimicked by other kings. Okay, so I posted 2 external links to YouTube short video lectures on both absolutism and Louis the Sun King, Louis the 14th, the Sun King, and on the Glorious Revolution. Also, the place where constitutional monarchy really gets a permanent place in politics. Okay, so look at both of those links, read your textbook, and then you'll be perfectly prepared as well to participate in the discussion this week when you're putting yourself in the shoes of one of these 2 monarchs, William of Orange of England, formerly of the Netherlands, and Louis the 14th of France, the Sun King. Right, so this is the time of the growth of state power, but 2 very different types of state power, right? You'll learn that Louis the 14th, actually the Kingdom of France, had kind of a weak king before Louis the 14th, and certainly before Louis the 13th, who came before him. We had talked a little bit about how France had actually experienced a kind of religious civil war between Protestants and Catholics in the 1500s, which ended in the Edict of Nantes, and kind of this this period of relative toleration of Protestants within Catholicism. Now that's going to be that's going to be brought to an end, that toleration, during the reigns of Louis the 13th, and especially then under Louis the 14th. They are going to see disunity everywhere, and maybe rightfully so, because there have been a lot of rebellions, including this rebellion in France known as the Fronde. And that's talked about in your textbook. That's what Louis the 14th, the Sun King, kind of experienced this as a child, as a kind of child king, right? There's an adult that's in charge at the time as well. It takes care of the child king in France, but it makes a big impression on Louis as a young man. This rebellion, the threat to his royal authority and to the Bourbon family. That's the name of the royal family. Okay, so listen to the crash course there. Also, watch and listen to the piece on William of Orange, and specifically on the Glorious Revolution in England. England is still dealing with religious problems as well, religious disunity and discontents. In England, you have everything from Puritans on one side, wanting the Church of England to be more and more puritanical, and then way on the other side, you also had Catholics living in England as well, who wanted to see, excuse me, England return to the Catholic group of nations. keep that in mind. And the Glorious Revolution sometimes is described as the last of these great religious battles, because when their armies meet, the armies of James II, who is the king who was dethroned in England by William of Orange, the final battle between these kings takes place in Ireland, of all places, a place called the Battle of the Boyne. This is still a famous battlefield. I had the good privilege of being able to visit that battlefield this past summer, in fact, and it's quite a feeling to have there in this place where, 300 years earlier, the William of Orange, who will establish constitutional monarchy in England and Great Britain, across Great Britain, and his rival, the king that he had actually dethroned in a kind of coup d'etat, he is pitched. They're both pitched in a great battle against each other there, and their armies are international, meaning that Catholics kind of flock to James II of England. The French are there, right, because they want to see a French king. Francis Catholic. There are Spanish in the ranks. There are lots and lots of Irish Catholics who want to overthrow their British and English landlords there. Ireland, a lot of people consider themselves to be a colony of England, and they want to overthrow, the English monarchy. They side, of course, with James II, and at the end of the day, there in July of 1689, William's army is victorious. Okay, so look that over. That ends sometimes what we call this period of religious wars. It was supposed to have ended at the Treaty of Westphalia. That's another term you should be familiar with in this module. That's the treaty that ended that 30 Years' War, which had started out a war over religion, and then it kind of had divulged into a much larger war, especially as France entered that war. It ends in 1648 with the Treaty of Westphalia. We have then the last great battle that's sometimes seen as part of those religious wars, then with the abdication of the throne of James II of England, as William of Orange comes in from the Netherlands, is victorious at the Battle of the Boyne. And that is essentially what were some of the main points we're looking at in those two countries of France and Great Britain in this module. The quiz will be published shortly. Take part in the discussion. I'll see you all online. Thank you for listening.
8 minutes 21. Stop taking video.